Welcome to the new Map Viewer Map Smarter workshop. We'll talk about the smarter word here in a bit. Joseph Kursky here on the education industry team here at Esri, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Kylie Donia. We've got a couple other members of the education team here, so you know where to find us. If we can help you in your success with geospatial technology and education going forward, let us know. It's great to interact with you all. Here's our contact information. We'll show this at the end as well. One thing that we wanted to lay out right here at the beginning, with the map viewer that we're going to be immersed in this next 45-minute chunk, is part of the ArcGIS platform. I think that's important for a couple reasons. It's connected to the other pieces of the platform, the data, the apps, the spatial technology tools, the analysis tools, and so on. It's not just some little back part of someone's tool set. So this top right, actually the top center button is the button that is the icon for the map viewer. Secondly, GIS continues to evolve, and I think the map viewer is a perfect evolutionary moment to talk about here, and that is that the classic map viewer that many of us have used since 2010 was created, 11 years ago, and it served its purpose and then some. The improvements that people have been asking for, plus new audiences, new data, new capabilities, the JavaScript 4.x tools, combined to make the new map viewer both a needed improvement and a reality. In other words, it's at your fingertips right now. So today in our workshop, our goals are as follows. Why should I use it? What is the new map viewer and how should I use it? We're going to demonstrate some new exciting capabilities, as you see here, sketching, charts, blending, and a bit more. We're going to discuss the differences and similarities between the map viewer and the classic map viewer. We're going to provide you some resources so that you can keep growing. I know that's all of our goal, right? Is to keep going, keep growing, and moving forward, and give you confidence that you and your students can be successful with the viewer. And teaching strategies to lay out. This is a snapshot. Remember, I just mentioned the evolution, the rapid evolution of geospatial technology, especially cloud-based tools like the map viewer. As of June 2021, here's the situation with things that we're going to talk about today, capabilities. We will, however, provide a brief look ahead, and we're going to model the things that you and I love about teaching with geotechnology, GIS, problem solving, asking questions, changing variables, that sort of thing, okay? So that's what we're going to do. That's our order of business for today. And we have a hub that Kylie set up for the Ed Summit, the Education Summit. We talked about hub in other workshops, an ArcGIS hub. Inside that hub is a zone for today's workshop. And we're going to put the video in there once it's available. But inside there, we've got a little component where I can start with the first map that we're going to look at, a demographics map. We're going to open it in the Map Viewer Classic. Open it in the Map Viewer Classic. This is the viewer that I mentioned that many of us have used for 10 years plus now. So here I've got it opening in the Classic. Now I created this map in the new viewer. So it says, hey, Joseph, do you want to open it in the new viewer? Well, for the first 30 seconds of this workshop, I'm going to say, no, I'm good. I want to show it in the Classic because I want you to refamiliarize yourself with where we've been over the last decade. So in the Classic viewer, right, we had a couple of capabilities in the upper left, details, the metadata, the base map. We had some tools on the top right. We had legend, we had content on the left. We had, again, another way to get to the metadata. We had no tools on the right-hand side. That was the experience with the Classic map viewer. Powerful and wonderful for its time and still available to you, as we'll talk about. But notice in the upper right, if you open a map in the Classic, you have the option of opening it in the new map viewer. And indeed, as you saw a moment ago, if you do open it in Classic, it says, hey, but there's a new map viewer. Don't you want to open it in there? We'll talk about later in this workshop about when you might want to still use Classic for a couple reasons. But by and large, that new map viewer, as I hope you'll see in this workshop, will give you lots of capabilities that you didn't have before. Okay, now we're in the new map viewer. Notice it's a different interface, but first and foremost, you've got your map, and it's the same map, it's the same layer that you had a moment ago, that I had a moment ago in Classic. It's the same exact data. We're pointing to this popular demographics feature layer, which I actually referred to in the demographics workshop earlier today. Notice you do not have any tools at the top any longer. Okay, you've got a title, you've got a choice. Hey, do you want to open it back up in Classic? And you also have, of course, a sign in to ArcGIS Online, which gives you additional capabilities that Kylie is going to go into with you in a bit. But I want to show you some things at the beginning that you can do without signing in. Why is this important? Well, a couple reasons, ever so briefly. If you're talking to colleagues, deans, faculty, fellow teachers, et cetera, about the power of spatial analysis and spatial visualization with GIS, you want to be able to do things, I think, without actually signing in, because they've come into your classroom or they're in your virtual session right now. And you want to say, here's the capability, before they even say, well, why would I even want to have this ArcGIS Online organizational subscription? This gives you the capability of doing some powerful things without signing in. Another reason, on the teaching side with your students, the bell's ringing in 5 minutes and you've got a face-to-face, you've got students coming in, or it's a virtual session and it's 5 minutes till the top of the hour and you want to have something ready to go on ecoregions or population or whatever. Okay, so those are two reasons, and you don't want to have to sign in for that. Okay, so let's look at this interface ever so briefly. Okay. Again, this is the same map that we had in Classic. Just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Now you've got some tools on the right. You've got some tools on the left, and you also have a gray pane, P-A-N-E, not P-A-I-N. That's a little geo joke, folks. But you've got a gray pane that you can collapse for more real estate, especially if you're using a tablet, right? Might come in handy, and you can expand back again. Okay. Now, we can do some of the same things as we had done in Classic: add data, change style, filter. Some of these things that we're going to talk about today, you have to sign in to do, and some you can't. You do not have to be signed in. I'm going to focus on the latter. Okay, let's do this. Let's change the base map on the left side. Okay, there's a base map tab or choice there. I'm going to change it to terrain with labels. I used to work at USGS. I love terrain with labels. Okay, very good. Now I've got terrain with labels as my base map, and you've got the same base map choices that you've had in Classic. Okay, now let's go under layers, and I've got a couple layers in here that we're going to dig into today, one of which is new, called the sketch layer, that Kylie's going to get in with you in a bit. But I've got the states demographics. Okay, if I click on there, notice I've got some choices now on the right side. Okay, well, that makes sense. Just like I had in Classic, I can make the states layer, for example, a bit transparent. And now I can see, as I do that, I can see some of the terrain coming through inside there. Okay, so I can slide this transparency bar up and down. Okay, and I can do that with any layer. Sounds good. Pretty straightforward. Like we're just dipping a couple toes into the shallow part of the waters here. Now we also have the adjust visible range, just like we had before. So if I want to be able to say, oh, I want to show states even if I'm zoomed in at a larger scale, I've got it stretched to the maximum. But notice also, and this is new with the new viewer, I've got these very helpful names here, as well as being able to push the ends of this slider bar. So I can actually pick the scale that I want. That's one of many enhancements. Also, just like you saw before, I've got the ability to go to a state. I'm here in Colorado. That's the landscape behind me. And I can click on a polygon, line, point, and get attributes for that feature layer, just like you would expect. Kylie is actually going to show you some additional things you can do with pop-ups that you could not do with Classic. But okay, so far it's looking pretty similar. I've got some additional things that I can do. Also, over here on the left side, we can hide the interface. So now we have even more real estate for our mapping, and then we can show interface. So it's like a toggle, right? Okay. Another thing that we want to do with you all is we want to filter. Let's do a filter. How do I do that? From right here, I've got a show interface, okay? And I'm going to click on that states layer. Okay, so I click on that states layer, and I don't want properties anymore. I actually want to go to filter here on the right side. And let's say I want to do some demographic analysis. Okay, I'm going to add an expression, and as you would expect, it's going to pull up the attributes for this particular layer. And I've got a whole mountain of attributes I can look at. But right here, I'm going to go click into this field browser, and notice, first of all, it's alphabetical, which is really handy and really nice. And secondly, I can search. Oh, I've wanted this for a long time. So let's say I look under median, so median age. I want to make a median age map. Okay, so replace. Okay, median age, and notice I've got this slider technology. I don't want at least, I want is less than, and oh, I can slide this to the left or right, or I can type in 37, which was actually the median age of the USA in 2010. So I'm going to go ahead and go 37 here and say save. And now if I go here and to my states layer, and I'm going to look at my filter, okay, median age is less than 37. And notice here I've got a couple of states selected. Okay, great. What states are they? Okay, click in the layer, and ellipses here to the right, as you expected, probably because of the classic had the same thing, show table. And now I'm going to look at the table of data in the states layer. And notice I've got states. I'm going to turn this one off, show table. And in here, save, go to table. I've got 7 records in there. You might say, well, it looks like you've got 5. Well, remember Alaska's up there, and it's got a younger median age. And also there's a state equivalent in here, District of Columbia. So I've got 7 polygons. Okay, that's great. Let's go back to filter and remove filter and click on that. And now we'll save that again. And I've got all the states back. One last thing. Let's change the style. Okay, how do I do that? On the right side, you've got a couple of choices that are grayed out because we're not signed in, but I can still change style as I did in Classic without signing in. I'm going to change the style. Lots of powerful things you can do here, but let's keep it pretty simple at the beginning. And let's go ahead and search on median once again. And I'm going to go to the 2018 median age from the American Community Survey. And I'm going to say add. And now I'm going to get the same kind of choices that you have: graduated symbol, graduated color. I'm going to go with the default graduated color and style options here. I'm going to classify my data, and I'm going to go with natural breaks with a 5-class map. Done, done. And let's pop up. Let's get rid of this table with the X. Let's see on the left side there, I've got layers. I've also got a legend. So now I've got a legend here. Excellent. So now we've got a quick population map showing median age. And now we can ask all kinds of questions about why and how does median age go up and down? What are the forces acting on it? Okay, a couple of notes about the approach here. I would highly advise you would use the new map viewer. It is more responsive, it's faster, it's got more capabilities, as we'll explain in this workshop, unless you need a couple things. One, the spatial analysis tools. Remember, June 2021, the spatial analysis tools, buffering, trace downstream, et cetera, are not in the new viewer yet. They're on their way. Secondly, if you've got a presentation, that's a capability in the Classic that's not quite here yet either. That will be arriving as well. So as in Classic, as a review, you can do things without signing in. That's important for the reasons we discussed. Number 2, you can open a map that you saved in the new viewer in the Classic. If you're using some capabilities that you've created in the new viewer, like sketching, like Kylie will go through with you in a moment, they won't show up in the Classic, but it's not like it's not going to work. It'll still work. Okay, over to you, Kylie. Thanks, folks.
Awesome, Joseph. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. I love seeing just all these different tools, right? And so Joseph really set a great stage here, which is all that stuff you're used to doing, you can still do, right? It's new, it's a little bit different. To me, I kind of orient myself by going, okay, we're here. And this is the same map Joseph used. Just keep on that page right now. We've got a toolbar on the left that's dark gray. So I often call it the dark toolbar. It's kind of the contents of your map. And then we've got our light toolbar on the left, which is our things we can do with our map, some of the settings and configuration, as well as some of those tools we're used to using. All right, Joseph already showed you some amazing things. We just want to talk a little bit more about using a map, for example, in front of your class. So Joseph showed one of my favorite things, right, which is that hide interface. So when I'm presenting a map to the class, I might want to really make the map front and center. I don't want the students reading the buttons on the side. I don't want them thinking about, ooh, what does that do if she clicks over there, right? Just going to hide that all. No distractions. Focus on the things that I'm showing you. But let's jump back in. There are some tools that are also great when presenting to your class, and they're available for you in the new map viewer as well. You will notice, like Joseph, I'm doing this not signed in. So we are going to be talking about things that you're able to do quickly and without needing a login. One of those things is to measure. Just like you could in Map Viewer Classic, measuring is very similar. You'll notice some differences. But for example, we could measure from California over to New York and click, and you'll see I can keep going and make it multi-part, or I could just double click and end my measurement. Right. And then this is a great moment to stop and talk to your students, right? What's the first thing you notice when you talk about measuring a distance between places? Well, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? But look at your line. So here's one of those moments. Talk to the students. Why is it curved? Why are you seeing that? What could account for it? What do you expect if you measure other things? Is every line going to curve? Maybe try another local one, try a short one, or zoom in so that they can actually see that, right? Wait, that one's not curved, and talk about the implications there. All right, also with students, you can, one thing that's different in new Map Viewer compared to Map Viewer Classic is previously finding coordinates or locations was part of measure. It is now a separate thing. So notice that now there is a location option over on that toolbar. And now as I move my mouse, look at the very top, we're seeing some coordinates, right? Well, what else can I do here? I'm seeing some coordinates, but oh, now those are there because I've used it before. So this is what you'll see the first time. Let me clean that up. You get a few more things, and let's go ahead and add some conversions. Maybe you also want to see it in UTM, right? And now you aren't choosing one, you can see both. Maybe you want to do a quick math exercise, right? Let's go ahead and add on degrees, decimal minutes, and maybe degrees, minutes, seconds. And there's a relationship between these numbers we're seeing. What is it? How can we find it? How could we get from one to the other? We can check our work so you can see them all here. Now, as I move the mouse, I find it really distracting to see all those numbers moving that quickly. So one great thing, you can pin to a particular location. They call it capture mode. Go ahead and click on that pin. And now all of a sudden, the only location you're going to see, it says no position because I haven't placed that anywhere. But I can bring that down and I can put it on the map. And now it stays. Now I do get my pop-up as well, but if I'm not interested, I'll just close that and keep going. Similar, you can search, and that does include searching for coordinates. For example, we can do a search. And you'll see some options, some suggestions come in, or you can just go ahead and search on what you were originally typing. Ah, where did we end up? So one thing you will notice is that in the search, you need to pay attention with latitude and longitude. And often you're going to find that you want to go ahead and list that longitude first. A little bit different, right? Because if you think X, Y, and then Y, X, it gets a little bit backwards. Let's go ahead and switch them. And let's zoom out. Now, one thing, yeah, I'm seeing all this blue. It's not really what I want. We'll just go in and remember what we do. We can go ahead and turn off that layer by clicking that eyeball. We can also go ahead and turn off all these others. Ah, here's the one we're seeing, right? You can tell, just like in Classic, the gray text means even though it's available to be visible, it's outside the scale range. But this darker black text shows me that that's the one I'm seeing. So I can turn that off. Well, where are we? Let's take a look. Ah, Point Reyes in California. Beautiful place to visit. All right, let's move on because there's so many cool things in here. I'm worried we're going to run out of time. Let me jump right on over to the sketch layer. So for those of you who used map notes are Classic. Sketch layer is new Map Viewer.
Kylie, there was already a comment about map notes and sketching. So perfect.
Oh, perfect. Great. perfect segue. All right, so sketch layers are what replace it. So before with map notes, you would be able to add map notes to your map, and then they appeared there and you could edit and work with them and do all those things. Limited set of things you can do, designed for those quick notes on the map, right? It's not data collection. It's, well, sketching. So let's go ahead and turn on that layer. Oops, I turned it off. There we go. It's on. What I want to do is select it. I'm going to select it by clicking on it. When I do that, you'll see next to my light toolbar, these panels open or panes open with the different things I might need to use while sketching. Now, I grew up in this area, so let's go ahead and take a look. I might want to share a little bit about that. So when I was younger, I lived in this area, and our scale visibility is catching me. I'm just going to go ahead and turn all these off just to keep it nice and safe. There we go. All right, so I can go ahead and add a pin, which is now called a stamp. Okay, so think of a stamp as a point. I can pick what I want that pin to look like, and you have to go in and play with these. There are some cool ones. You mean with trees, we used to get little trees. Look at all the choices I have now. And my favorite is some of the animal ones that are available. There's quite a selection in here that you can come in and play with. Let's stay to pins for right now, because otherwise I will get distracted by the choices. And I've picked the pin that I want to use. Let's go with this guy today. And I can go ahead and click and place it onto the map. Now I might be done there. That might be fine. But one thing I can do now is I can change it. Let's make that pin bigger. Maybe we want to rotate it. Now what I'm showing here is rotating by typing in, right? In reality, that works. You might have something more specific you want to get. And again, this isn't data collection. It's not going to be rich, powered by attributes. This is the quick sketch. So we can rotate it, we can size it. If you keep looking here, you'll notice we can change fills and colors. Pop-up. So there's that as well. You can come in and you can enable pop-ups on your pin. You can give it a title. And you can also add text for it. In that text, you get a nice editor where you can do bold, italic, however you want to set that up. Let's just make it simple for the sake of time. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and close our sketch tools. Now I'm just working with my map again. See, clicking is not dropping more pins, it's moving the map again. And when I click on that pin, you can see that pop-up that I've created. Let's go back into those sketch tools for a minute, because I do want to show you the line as well. This is pretty awesome. Now I'm sketching, so I'm not necessarily being precise, but I'm kind of a perfectionist. And look, as I get close to a right angle, it'll help you find it. So now, even though I'm just sketching a line, I can find some of these nice angles and it'll help me find it. Oh, look, there's another one. Now, say I put them at a weird angle. Let's get some odd angles here. And it will help me find different parallels. So you can see now there's this higher orange line that appears, and mine to say, oh, those two will be parallel to each other. And I can click and drop the pin there.
Ooh, Kylie, so if they were making a map of their school grounds with a sketch for the buildings, a sketch for the parking lots, the playground, the football field, whatever.
Correct.
Ooh.
So you can make sure you're getting somewhat realistic and accurate here, right? So it's still not data collection, but it's helping. All right, let's go ahead now. I want to move on from sketch. So
hey, Kylie, while you're moving on, can you add your own image to a pin, a point sketch?
Sure. So great. Thank you for that reminder. Let's go back into those sketch tools for just a minute. One thing I did want to point out is there's this different area on select features. That's how you're going to edit one. So say I want to go back to this pin and change its pop-up. What I need to do is have that select option instead of the drawing tools up here. So pick that select features. And now you can click over here and get your pin back. You'll go down to your pop-up, you can come in and you can edit it. Now you do notice that it is text right here, but I can add other content. For example, an image. So if I did have an image URL that I wanted to load in, this would be where I would use that. All right, thank you. Next thing I want to show in this map, we're still in the same map Joseph was using, and he was talking a lot about demographics and population and median age and all these different things. And one thing that's new in New Map Viewer that's very powerful, especially when exploring population data, but I'm sure you'll immediately think of other uses as well, is this ability to create and work with charts. Now, again, I'm not signed in, so I'm not creating this chart. We will look at them a bit later, but I can go in and I can see the median age by state. This chart opens and it loads for just, and you can see, look, as I hover, I can see the median age of each state. Wow, this one's low. Ah, Utah, right? We expected that. But here's what's awesome. Let's go ahead and zoom out a bit so we can see more of our data. And let me turn that data back on the map. Ah, I can make that chart a little smaller. So these buttons here are going to make charts, tables, these different kind of horizontal panels, change the size of them. So let's go back and let me go back to my layers so I can turn it back on. Now we're seeing our states again. And now let's go back. Let's make our chart a bit bigger. And now if I click on that one, it selects it on the map. So there is a relationship there between the two, which is super exciting for exploring data, because now I can look at the data almost like an easier dashboard, right? That just is that quick look at a chart and it's still linked right to my data. And I get that back and forth between it, which is wonderful. All right, I know I need to finish this up. So let me jump. Last thing I wanted to show with pop-ups. One cool thing in New Map Viewer, this button right here, Dock. How often have you opened a pop-up and had it obscure what you were trying to look at, right? I know that happened to me and I often wished I could move them. Well, now you can dock it off to the side. That pop-up will stay there. It's still interactive, but it's a little bit out of your way. All right, Joseph, let me turn this back over to you.
Kylie, before you go, hello everyone, This is Galen. I've worked with our events team. There's a question came in from John. Is this the New Map Viewer new? If I start viewing in the New Map Viewer, if I start viewing in New Map Viewer, will it mess up the web app builder app that uses the map?
That's a great question. And let me go ahead and address that really quick. So in the New Map Viewer, you are still editing the map. So as Joseph showed, you can open it in Classic, you can open it in New, but there are differences. And we're going to get into some of the more critical ones in a little bit. But with some of the symbology you can do, some of these different setups, they're not going to work in the old places. So there are certain apps you do need to be aware won't work with the newer enhancements. And Web App Builder is one of those places that some of these new things won't work in. Another example is the classic story maps. So those are the big two to keep in mind. So as you're editing your map, a best practice is actually, once you decide to move into New Map Viewer, make a new version of the map, just so you don't break things you might forget we're using the old map viewer in other places. And then going forward, use the New Map Viewer and use the newer things like the newer story maps that do work with it. All right, Joseph, I think I just covered a lot of your discussion, right?
Yep, but it's all good, and appreciate the comments and questions, folks. Ever so briefly, just to kind of sum up here, this first part, we're going to have a couple more minutes of demo here, but there's no analysis yet. There's no presentation yet, but so much more power at your fingertips. Also, as I'm showing right here on this particular screen, you can create an app. This is a little bit of a deeper dive that we don't have time to fully uncover, but if you want your users, students, for example, to do specific things and you don't want to have to sign in, such as the Living Atlas apps, this is there's some documentation on how can you share your apps from the New Map Viewer that contain public subscriber content. More on sharing apps publicly that in this help zone. But I'm going to turn it back to Kylie because we've got a couple of other things that we wanted to do here in the last remaining precious minutes that we have together.
Thanks, Joseph. All right, I've stolen the screen back. Hopefully you guys are seeing my screen now. So I'm going to have to pick it up a little bit, but we do want to look at that last part. We were looking a lot at using the map, and we want to talk also about some of the authoring things that are different. Now, because I'm authoring, I do need to have an identity and sign in. Now, I just have another map open in another tab. I'm going to click over to. I've called it a shoes map, but there's nothing in it right now. So the only reason this exists as a saved item, it's completely empty, was just so I could share a URL. For those of you who are kind of following along with some of the links from the hub page, this one is available there as well. I am signed in. You can see over here. Now, let's go ahead and look at authoring. We can still add layers just as we did before. I've already typed in a search query and it remembers it, which is kind of helpful right now when I'm pressed for time. So that's a search I'm doing just to find the layer I wanted. But I could also do different areas. For example, if I want to see my content very similar to before, right? You're not going to be in a completely new world here. But let me go back to that layer that we searched for and found. I'm going to add, this is actually from a data collection project. We did a data collection project on what shoes people had on. And I'm going to go ahead and add those shoes to the map. The reason I'm using this one is some of the new enhancements, especially in pop-ups, are I come from a data collection background and I love what we can do now. All right, so I've added my layer. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the layers list. You can see it in here now. You can see its properties. Joseph gave a quick look at this. I'm not going to dwell here. You can still do symbolization. You can choose an attribute. You can search down this list and you can pick, let's see, let's go with the style of shoe because I know this data. And I'm going to color it based on, are you wearing athletic shoes, slippers, socks? We had to add a couple questions now that everyone works from home. All right, we can come in and we can change some of this. I can come into that symbol and I can choose a reminder. When you come in here, one thing that I'm still getting used to a little bit is the fact that these sections are collapsible. And I gloss over this symbol one all the time thinking it's a title. It's not. Click on it, right? And you'll get used to it. And you can go ahead and set the size in here, all those same things you did before. You have some new color ramps, which is wonderful, all kinds of content in here to explore. The other thing I want to go ahead and do with this map right now is I do want to show you, because we talked about with sketch, right? That required a layer to be in the map. Well, how do I get a sketch layer? How do I make use of all those tools when I'm making my own map? Up here in add. So this is where you're going to add all those things that aren't based on layers already in ArcGIS Online, sorry. So I can come in here and I can add my sketch layer. And now, just as I expect, all the sketch tools open. And again, we don't have to get into those right now because we've already taken a look. So I'm going to go ahead and close them. Now I'm going to add one more layer and I'm going to add this field worker one. Really, we don't usually do this with our surveys, right? Because we want people editing that data correctly through the survey. But the reason I'm adding it right now is just to show that in New Map Viewer also, when it is an editable layer, you will get this edit capability and you will be able to edit and add features when you're working with an editable layer. All right, let's remove that one so we don't get confused. Let's go back to our layer list. Let's go back to our shoes layer. They're kind of all on top of each other, right? Here's something awesome in the new map viewer. We can cluster our data. So all I need to do is turn it on and the defaults are actually decent. Well, how did it pick what color? Let's go ahead and click on one. There's even a pop-up for the cluster. There's 26 features. The predominant value is most people in that area had slippers on. All right, so its color, as we can see over here in the legend, is coming from the color of the predominant one. That's great. That makes sense, right? Now I can configure that cluster. I can change the label. I can change the pop-ups. I can do things with the fields. I can change size of clustering area of the cluster itself. I can change the clustering radius. One of the things in here is you are going to have to play. It is your data and the same thing won't be appropriate for all different data sets. Let's leave clustering for a minute. Let's jump over, and I know I'm picking it up a little here, but I want to get these all, let you guys see all these choices. Let's look at the pop-up. Another thing that's changed in New Map Viewer is the pop-ups are much more configurable. In the past, you could choose to use a single field, a list of field, text that you edited, right? But the structure of it was kind of nailed down for you. Not anymore. So now I can come in and I can, let's add some content. I'm going to add a text section and we're going to say, I am wearing, add a curly brace. My field list up here. And I can go ahead and put that shoe style. When I say okay, you'll see my pop-up has changed right as I'm typing. I don't have to apply it, go click, check if it worked, come back, any of that. All right, the other thing I can do, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in because I do want to find a feature in here, and I know I have a couple, where the pop-up is going to have an image. Okay, this is a list of images. So if there were multiple ones here, you'd see all of them. But I can go ahead and take the attachment section of my pop-up, turn off showing as a list, and you can now take your images that are part of your data, show them large in your pop-up, right? It just comes right in, which is wonderful. Now, I do have a field list here. Maybe it's in the way. You can go ahead and drag and position it to change the order. Maybe I want my text at the top. Maybe I don't even need that field list at all. I can delete it. Or maybe I want to add another text section. Whatever it might be, other attributes below, next to the other one. This is all up to you. So you now get to design that whole layout. With this, of course, now that we are signed in, we can also save our work. And now we have, of course, saved it. And then, as Joseph was mentioning, you can share it. You can create apps. You can do all these things. One of the great things in Create Apps, these are the new dashboards and the new story maps. So, and new instant apps. These are replacing the configurable apps and are just a little bit more modern and up to date. All right, Joseph, I have not left you much time, but jump in, get us some blending.
Ooh, okay. You're getting me all excited here about the next couple of things here. Only take a few minutes on these, but okay, let's take a look at building on what Kylie was doing with you all. For example, I've got some new ag data from the census, as well as some fairly historical ag data. So 2007 predominant crop from the Living Atlas of the World. So I've got this in the new map viewer. And notice that in here, I've got, let's pop up a legend here on the left side in the left gray pane there. I've got three things actually that I'm showing on here: predominant category in the color, corn, wheat, etc., the amount of ag land in that county, the size of the symbol, and then the saturation or hue of the color of that symbol is how much that crop is dominant in that county. So you've actually got a lot of good discussion items right here in just this symbology. But let's say we wanted to change that symbology and touch on some of the things that Kylie was just mentioned. And that is, I'm going to change the style here, and I'm going to go with, sometimes I like to kind of start over with a blank slate. So I'm going to change it to single symbol. Every county in this case is going to be a single symbol. So once I change that to single symbol, I want to show expressions and blending. So, okay, let's just say done here. And inside here now, okay, I've got it all as single symbol. Let's go ahead and say, no, you know what I want to do here. We've done field earlier. Now let's go to expression. And just like you had in the classic, you have an expression builder. This opens actually in a new tab. Don't get scared by the new tab. Your map is still there. It's just a new tab in your browser. And so I can pick field names from the list and choose my expression. I'm going to divide the total number of crop acres by the area in acres in that county times 100 for a percentage. So nice integration of math and geography and GIS. I'm going to test it, make sure there's no syntax errors, and then I'm going to say okay here. And once that finishes drawing, I'm going to say, you know what, I want counts and amounts color for that. Now I've got this rough, it gives me an idea of, wow, the ag counties. But I don't like those colors, Kylie. So I want to change that. Instead of this color ramp, it's crops. I kind of want a green, something greenish. So I'm going to change it to this, but then I don't want the predominantly ag counties to be lighter color. I want those to be darker. So I'm just going to reverse the ramp colors. And now, oh, I'm liking that a lot. So in here now, though, if I go to my styles, my expression that I have there, right? If I go there, notice that it says new expression. I don't want new expression. So if I say edit there and change it to exactly what I want, for example, dominant ag counties or something like that, then I'm going to have it, instead of saying new expression, I'm actually going to have a decent name. So it's important to pay attention to the titles of these things as well. And as Kylie was hinting at, blending. Now, many software programs such as Photoshop and others that you've probably used have had a sort of a blend capability where the software performs calculations on each layer's pixels to apply various visual effects. I think that's even more important with GIS, because with blending here in the new map viewer, we have the ability to look at patterns, which is what we all love about using these tools. So for example, if we open a In the interest of time, I'm going to skip right to this map. I'm not going to actually add it from the ArcGIS Online Living Atlas, but it's the tree canopy. So I've got tree canopy here, and oh, this is fascinating. Wow, look at the tree canopy here. Do I have a global tree canopy layer? Yes, there's a global tree layer as well. I'm just going to look at US to keep consistent with what we've been analyzing here thus far. But now I can see the hardwood forest, I can see the deciduous forest, the Rocky Mountains, etc. Okay, that's all good, and I can make this transparent. But if I want to look at crops and tree cover, a blending option with source atop will let me see that, okay, in counties where there's more ag, there's less tree cover. And there's lots of factors that you could talk about with students, right? Forest management, who owns the forest, et cetera. How much access there are to forests in terms of land use. But being able to do this, what this does, and there's a whole lot of documentation on what these blend modes do, lighten, darken, etc. You've got about 30 blending choices. What I've done is source atop, and what that does is the source or top layer is drawn only when it overlaps the background layer. So in this case, I'm seeing some relationships between, okay, heavily ag, less forest cover. Interesting. So that's what I wanted to show in terms of blending. I'm going to leave it there because of our time constraints, Kylie. I'm going to let you do some really fascinating things here right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. So just a couple things I wanted to show. I'm going to just quickly, one thing people have been interested in that they can now do. Let me get back to this layers list. You can now group your layers. So this isn't a great example because I don't have millions of layers, but let's go ahead and group them. So we can create a new group with our layer, and you'll notice now it's a collapsible section. With our other layers, we can move them into that group, and you pick which group you're adding it to. All right, so it's a bit of a whirlwind demo, but really the point here is you can make group layers, take that demographic data that Joseph was working in, group it all. And why would you want to do that? Well, the main one is visibility, right? I can toggle all my visibility at once. So when that layer kept appearing on me, it would have been much easier for me to turn all of them off at once if we had grouped those. All right, and really quick, the other thing I want to show, and then I want to give you some resources. When you are working in this map, another thing you can do while you have a layer selected, and actually this, we're going to configure a chart. So just so you can see that experience. This is in beta, so be ready for it to change, but you are able to add a chart, choose the type that you would like to make. And then once you're in here, it gives you a reminder. Set a category. Okay, so we need to start in our data, and we're going to set the category. It's going to be what's going across. And let's do the style of shoe that people have on. We've already got our counts. So now we can get some of that information, like before you might have stuck your collected data into a dashboard to do some of this aggregation of your data and summarizing. All right, we are running right up against our time. Let me jump up to our last slide here because I want to leave you with some resources. I can stick these in the chat as well. Let me grab the list. All right, and I have to find my chat window, make sure I'm sending it to everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. So here's this list, and we will have these in that hub site that we shared at the beginning as well. So there's a blog about an overview of the new map viewer. There is a learn path that's going to take you through some exercises and videos and get you more comfortable. We are getting geo inquiries updated to use new map viewer. Now the classic ones are staying as they are. We're adding new versions. Tom talked a little bit about this in the K-12 plenary, so you can check that out, the recording on that out. But you can go in and try those. We also have a blog about the stuff that we're showing today, really, what the K-12 community should know about. And finally, the higher ed group did a chat, one of their web chats, or web, like informal webinars, I think of them, showing the new map viewer, and they have a recording and all the resources from that available for you.
It was one of our developers of the new map viewer that was on, Zara, and she was great. So for those of you that are saying, hey, we don't have enough time, hopefully these resources will help.
Yep. And we do appreciate all of you coming today. Let me scroll a little bit so you can have our contact information there on the slide. Sorry, we ran out of time for questions. If you do have any, please feel free to send them along to Joseph and myself. we really enjoy answering questions actually and hearing what people want to do. That's what's exciting about all of this.
Yeah.
So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, folks.